Okay, in this video we're going to be covering the assembly of your Formula One car drawing. Before you get started, a few things I want to point out. Number one, from the last video, all of your parts should have been imported and checked that they are fitting, working with the wheels and wheel wells that you used in this drawing file. If that's not the case, please go back to the previous video and I'll show you how to use what's called the scale tool to edit your parts. Also, from the last video, we drew the car body, specifically the car body outline. So do make sure that you were checking your work by clicking on the car body as I just did. The last video covers it in much more detail, but you should have seen a complete outline of your car body, and I showed you ways to check that it's going to work when we start extruding, which is what we're going to be covering shortly here. So make sure this is all covered and complete before you move on to the next step. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want you to do, if you have not saved the file, go ahead and save your body file. But now we're going to start a new step, so we're going to save this as an assembly. So I want you to click on the folder. I'm going to select Save As, and we're going to go ahead and type in an assembly file name. So I'm going to go to SketchUp, F1, this is where I'm saving my work. For your file name, I want you to type in assembly this time and hit Save here. This is the file, when we complete this, that you're going to submit through Google Classroom. Now, let's get started. So I'm going to click on my eraser tool here, and I'm actually going to be getting rid of some extra lines and some extra geometry, so please follow along. I'm going to get rid of this line here. I'm going to get rid of this line here. I'm going to get rid of this line over here in the back. Now, the E key on your keyboard will activate the eraser. I'm going to get rid of this here, but I don't want you to get rid of any of this geometry. This is our 9mm axle line. Keep that there for now, along with this mark here, which actually tells us that our car body is at least 15 millimeters thick. Now, I do want to point something out that I may have covered, that I did cover in my last video, but some of you need to be careful with this. I, with my design, cannot delete this line here. In the last video, I showed you how students can draw the car body and align it or follow the bottom of their side pod. The reason I can't get rid of this line here is because if I use my tape measure tool, I am clearly from the top of my car body to the bottom of my car body. Look in the bottom right hand corner of my screen. This is 15 millimeters. So by deleting this area here of my car body, my car would actually be less than 15, which means it would not follow specification. So some of you might have to delete this here, some of you will not. Just make sure you understand the fact that the car needs to be at least 15 millimeters in thickness between the rear and front axle. Once again, covered in the last video, so let's move on. So we're going to be doing a little bit of what's called orbit. Now there's two ways to do this. There's an orbit tool here. This is the orbit tool. Another way to use orbit is simply with a mouse, hold down the wheel, keep pressing it down, and just move the mouse to put a little bit of an angle on your car. And sometimes you might see a message appear here. You can just hit cancel, but you always want this at a slight angle before you do what's called push-pulling. Speaking of push-pulling, let's get started. I'm going to jump over here to the left. This is the push-pull icon. You can also activate that by hitting the P key on your keyboard to activate push-pull. So to push-pull, it's very simple. You hover over the face of what you want to extrude. You single click with your left mouse button. Now release the mouse button and just move away from the drawing. And you're going to type in 32. Okay, just type in 32 and hit enter. Very good. Now I want to just point something out, and it may happen to some students. I'm going to hit Control Z. Some of you might try to extrude, but when you're doing this step, for some reason your car looks hollow, and you'll know what I'm talking about if it happens to you. Simple fix. With the push-pull tool selected, bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard, hit the Control key, the CTRL key. You'll see a little plus symbol appear next to the push-pull icon. This is only for students who are noticing the car looks hollow when they try to push-pull a shape, okay? So I'm going to hover over that face again. You're not going to see a difference, but those of you that were struggling with this will see it work this time. You're going to click, and once again, you're going to move away from the face and just type in 32. Don't try to find it, just type in 32 and hit enter, okay? Now, you'll notice that there's this funny looking color. So for those of you that were struggling with this, it's okay that it doesn't look white or gray. It's okay that the color is different. So let me do this one last time. Push-pull is activated. Click once, move away, type in 32, and hit enter. Okay. All right, we're ready to move on. So let's now go ahead and do the same thing with the parts. Okay. Keep in mind that the parts are what are called grouped. So I can't just use the extrusion tool or the push-pull tool, it just won't find it. I'm going to first click on the part, and then I'm going to double click on it, and now I'm in edit mode. So once again, I'm going to hit push-pull, P for push-pull. This time the extrusion is going to be 62. So I hover over the face, click once, move away, and type in 62. Now always keep the model at a slight angle when you do this so you can actually see the extrusion taking place. Okay, so I typed in 62 and hit enter, and to get out of this I can just hit the arrow tool, click anywhere outside, and I'm back. So once again, do not extrude looking straight at the object, because when you extrude something from this perspective you can't see the extrusion take place. Orbit, put a slight angle, there you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going down the line here. There's my side pod selected, double click, push pull, hover over the face, click once, and just move away. Now once again, it doesn't matter how far you move, just type in 62. Hit enter. Okay, and last but not least, in my case, last but not least, I'm going to do this airfoil. Some of you might have to do the same thing if you have a spoiler, do the spoiler as well. Okay, so I'm going to hover over here, double click, once again push pull or hit P on your keyboard, hover over the face, click once, move away, and once again I'm going to move really far back so I can really see that this is actually taking place. But no matter what, if I type in 62, I get 62. Okay, let me go ahead and click off of this. All right, I'm actually going to hold down my orbit so you can kind of see what happens. We can all clearly see these parts are not centered at all, but we're going to fix that next, okay? So in order to start the next step, here's what I'd like you to do. Let's first save our work. Remember, the assembly file is now much different than the body file, so that's where we're creating kind of this new file name. This is the file when we're done that you can submit through Google Classroom. I want you to orbit, and I want you to move like this. I want you to move this into position, okay? And we're going to do a little bit of math here. This is actually pretty simple. I'm going to kind of prove a point by using the tape measure tool. I'm going to use the tape measure tool. We know that this is 32. The question is then if that's 32, what is this? Well, watch this. If I click from here to here, that right there is 30. Well, obviously we have a problem. We don't want the entire part coming off of one side. We want it to be even on both sides. So we need to take this number 30, we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to get 15. 15 is the number that we're going to use for this next step. Okay, watch this. This is super simple. Looking at your car from the bottom, I'm going to click on the arrow tool, and I'm going to click once, in this case, on my front airfoil. Just one time. I'm going to hit M for move. It does not matter where you click on the part. It doesn't matter. You can click here, here, here. Just make sure that obviously you're moving the right object. I'm going to click right here, just because I'm going to click once. And here's where you have to be careful. I want you to watch what happens as I move in this direction. I'm going to zoom in really close. You're going to see that there's this green dotted line. Very important that you see the green dotted line. Watch this. If I move, I don't see a green dotted line. Moving on the green line means you're moving on the green axis, which means you're moving perpendicular from the car body. Now, we started moving, and you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, these numbers are also starting to increase as I move. You've learned that you can just type a number in. So we used to be at 0, and now I'm just going to move along the green axis. So you can see I'm now moving off the opposite side of the car body. I want you to type in 15 and hit enter. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a perfectly centered front airfoil. This is the message I was talking about. I'm just going to hit cancel. Now, I'm going to do the same thing for the remainder of the parts. This is pretty simple stuff. So remember, make sure that you're kind of looking at the car from the bottom. Make sure that you first select the part with the arrow tool. I'm going to hit M for move. It does not matter where I click. I could click here, I could click here, I could click here. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to click anywhere. Click once. And make sure you're moving along that green axis. Now remember, I can move as far as I want, as far as I want away. The key is type in 15 and hit enter. Okay, and it'll move it only that distance. Okay, so I'm going to do one last one. In this case, it's going to be my rear airfoil. Remember, some of you have a spoiler, so make sure you do the spoiler as well. So I'm going to hit M for move. Object was selected. I'm now going to click and just move in the direction of the green axis and type in 15. Excellent. Okay, let me just kind of come down. Let me rotate this a little bit. Okay, that's looking pretty darn good. Now comes the last and final step. I'm going to hit save. Okay, it is very important, once again, that you did not delete the wheel wells for this simple reason. I've learned a little trick here leaving these in place. Since we know the parts are working with the wheel wells and the wheels, we're going to use these temporarily and then we're going to delete them. Okay, watch this. Tape measure tool. Okay, there's my tape measure tool. All right, I'm going to use my tape measure tool and I'm actually going to go ahead and click right in the dead center. So let me zoom in here. Okay, I'm going to click in the dead center and you'll notice there's a little plus symbol there. Okay, so I'm going to rotate a little bit so we can all kind of get a sense of what's happening here. Right there on that plus. I'm going to click once with my tape measure. Once again, there's that green axis. You're going to type in the number 20. The number 20. 20. And you're going to hit enter. Okay. You're going to see in a minute that this is where we're going to be placing that part file that I created for you. Okay, we're going to get rid of this in just a minute, but let's do the same thing now in the back. So I'm going to kind of rotate a little bit. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, get used to using your mouse to do orbiting and zooming. We're going to now, once again, with the tape measure selected, remember, find that little plus symbol. It's in the center of that wheel. Click on it once. Release your mouse. Just move away and just make sure you see a green axis. If you see a black line, do not do anything. Find the green axis, then type in 20 and hit enter. Okay. All right, folks, this is the last step. Okay, watch how easy this is. I'm going to use my eraser tool. I'm going to get rid of this wheel well file for now because I just don't need it, don't want it anymore. Okay, and I want to remind you that we have the wheels right over here. Okay, look how easy this is. I'm going to once again select the wheel with the arrow tool. I'm going to hit the M for move or just click on the move tool. I want you to zoom in to make sure you are grabbing this directly from the little plus symbol that you see here. So I'm going to click on it once. Okay, you can see I'm now in control. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, I'm going to zoom in, and here's the magic. You're going to place this right on the end. Boom. Click. Like it, love it. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, Mr. Bolt, you only gave me one set of wheels and axles. Don't I need another pair? You do. So here's the beauty of the move tool. If you look at the bottom of your screen, if you hit your control key with the move tool selected, you can copy an object. Okay, watch this. So as we can all clearly see here, okay, I've got just what I need for right now. We're going to go ahead and take this and copy a second one here. So I'm going to click on the object. I'm going to select move. And I'm going to hit the control key on my keyboard. I want you to see a little plus symbol up here. There it is. There's a little plus symbol. I'm going to move once again to the dead center of that wheel and axle part. Click on it once. You've now made a copy. Okay, look at that. You have a second copy. Now, as we've done before, we're going to find the center. In this case, the end of the tape measure mark. I'm going to click right on the end of that tape measure mark and I'm going to click. Boom. Okay. Let me go ahead and just zoom out a little bit here. My computer's acting a little funny right now. There it goes. There it goes. And ladies and gentlemen, we now have a completed assembly. Okay. Looks great. Looks wonderful. Now, I don't mind if students at this point, as long as you like what you see here, I don't mind you taking the eraser tool and getting rid of this geometry that clearly we don't need anymore. But I wouldn't erase anything yet until you're satisfied with what you've done, with the end result. And if something's acting kind of funny like it is right now and it just doesn't want to erase, just leave it. It's all good. But try to get rid of as much of this extra geometry, there we go, as you can. And of course, if you also want to get rid of this CO2 cartridge housing area, one way I find it easier to delete this is just click on it with your mouse and hit your delete key on your keyboard. There we go. And you have completed the assembly of your car. Now, I'd like you to keep this kind of in an isometric view. So if you click over here on the right, you're going to see this thing called Views. You can either do this manually or under Views, you can select this view right here, okay? And that, oops, my bad. Let's use that one right there. There we go. Click on this icon right here. And I would like you to have submitted this. Let me go ahead and close the screen here with the file kind of in this perspective so that the moment I open it, it looks just like this. Okay, now don't submit anything until you first save your work. Okay, and in order to get this to me, you're going to have to take your file and you're going to have to first download it. Yes, download your file when you're done. This right here doesn't really matter to me what you save this in, but if you want to save it just to keep it easier for me, select 2018. Okay, don't worry about why, but use 2018 if you remember. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Hit OK. And as we all know, this downloads to your computer, which means in our Google Classroom, you're going to find a Formula One car SketchUp assembly assignment. Okay, and all I'm asking you to do is to open this assignment, and in this assignment, I want you to go ahead and add your file. Okay, I want you to add your downloaded assembly file to this, and please turn it in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thank you very much. Good luck